And with the dollar at its lowest level since 2023, fears are mounting the currency could fall further, with some investors turning to Bitcoin. Some analysts believe the boom to come could position the cryptocurrency alongside a commodity like gold, which hit a fresh all-time high just this week. And joining us now is Matthew Graham, managing partner of VC firm RYZE. Matthew, it's good to see you. You know, it's interesting, Matthew. In my inbox, one trend I've noticed is folks sending emails. It's mostly technicians, it's chartists, and they're interested in looking at gold and Bitcoin here. And it is true, Matthew, that since about late July, you've seen gold, it's up about 5%. Bitcoin is down roughly about the same, Matthew. What, if anything, do you make of that?
Sure. So I would kind of caution putting too much stock into that kind of trend analysis. I think technical analysis of that sort is basically astrology for men. But I would phrase it like this. Macroeconomic factors are by far and away the number one factors that drive Bitcoin's price. But over any shorter period of time, there are going to be a lot of other factors that are coming into play as well. Gold and Bitcoin are they fundamentally behave differently in risk-on environments. Gold has been a store of value for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And the empirical evidence is pretty overwhelming at this point that Bitcoin, conversely, is a risk-on asset. It's possible that in some kind of extreme edge case, such as US dollar collapse, that could result in a different price action from Bitcoin, but ultimately we're talking about a risk-on asset, and that's quite different from gold, which has been a store of value for so long.
A question I have about Bitcoin, Matthew, I want to get your take on this. Those spot Bitcoin ETFs, Matthew, there was a lot of excitement, obviously, early in the year when those launched. The idea, was going to be everybody was going to load up on those. Is that what we've seen? How would you grade the launch and at least sort of initial reception here by investors?
Sure, I would grade the launch as overwhelmingly positive. It's one of the most successful ETF introductions, class of ETFs, one of the most successful introductions in some years. Overwhelmingly positive for Wall Street, overwhelmingly positive for anyone involved with the production of the ETFs. In practice, I think that a substantial part of the ETF volumes are driven by people playing the basis trade, capturing that delta between spot and future. And so I think the volumes can be a little bit misleading if you're trying to use those volumes to assess money inflows into Bitcoin themselves. So as a product, overwhelmingly successful, and I think that is bullish in terms of predicting Wall Street's interest in continuing to get involved with crypto on a going forward basis. But you can't quite map it to inflows in the way that it's tempting to do.
Matthew, the Democratic National Convention taking place, Kamala Harris speaking tonight. I want to get your take on how important you think the U.S. election is for crypto. And are you surprised at all, Matthew, at how much of an issue crypto has become in this campaign?
I think the election is quite significant for crypto. The fact remains that the Biden administration has been overwhelmingly hostile to crypto. And so we are seeing signs that a Trump administration would be a big change from that. I think there's a lot of caution to that as well, because the Trump administration first time around was more neutral rather than positive towards crypto. And I think that it's likely that President Trump is viewing it in more of an opportunistic fashion. But still, even if a Trump administration were to be neutral rather than actively hostile, that would be an enormous change from the last 4 years. I don't think we can necessarily assume that a Harris administration would be a continuation of the Biden administration policies. And there have been some comments and even some overtures to indicate that there is at least some possibility of a reset, but I think that needs substantially firmer evidence before we could really put any credence into it.
Fair enough. Matthew, thanks so much for joining the show today. Appreciate it.